Alright, time to get some hot information about what's coming out of Computex and kind of everything that's new that's going to be happening in terms of tech, at least what's interesting right now. You don't really see a lot of huge changes coming out of Computex. Everything's kind of a little bit more of an increment. But I think AMD's new technologies actually make a big difference, and this could be the big year for AMD. So let's go check out everything you need to know about Computex and what's hot with the new NVIDIA, AMD, Intel stuff. All right, let's go. Hi, this is Richie Riggs, where I'll build your computer live and make sure you know exactly what's hot in technology. Hey guys, so I just wanted to tell you real quick before the video, a few little changes in the setup. So I got a new lens on my camera and it's much better. The other one wasn't focusing quite right, but it's got to be further away and I kind of have to sit like where the camera is. I got to sit in order to record. So I'm sitting in my chair with the green screen right in the corner, but I think it came out really good. The quality's definitely better. And you could probably tell that my microphone here sounds pretty good. The room still needs more soundproofing, and I want to get a nice studio set up. I think in the future, I'm just going to put the microphone in the video, and so you can get the really good audio, because it's just, so much better. I'm sorry. It's been too echoey. We're not quite there yet, so. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I've been toying with some things, and I think this is going to be a little bit better, so I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Hey guys, it's Richie Riggs, and I'm back. I've been gone for a little bit. I was on a little bit of a trip there, and I had to do a little job downtown. I actually live by Chicago, if you don't know. And yeah, I went down there. I set up a pretty sick system for these guys. They need a machine virtualized, so that took up a little bit of my time, and I've still been putting a little bit of effort into some of those longer videos I've been working on. But today I wanted to talk about what I've learned about new technology coming out of Computex and kind of the future of processors and what to expect, essentially, and how I feel about the next generation of processors coming out, so we can figure out whether or not they're any good, or we should be looking forward to them, or if there's something you should buy. So let's talk about some of the neat stuff that I saw out there. I kind of want to make this everything you need to know about Computex. Everything good from Computex in a nutshell. Just kind of the good stuff. I don't have enough time to go through everything super in detail. There's a lot of videos out there if you want all the gritty details of every new product that's coming out. But I don't think we need to be concerned with all of that. There's a lot of trends, and the first thing that I saw there was there's a bit of an obsession with cold plates and getting the most out of our coolers. And the justification they have for this is actually kind of interesting, because there aren't a ton of processors that are really demanding. I mean, the high-end Intel chips are, but it looks like the next generation Intel chips won't have such a huge heat demand. But they're really pushing forward with this ideology of making their coolers as good as possible to reduce the acoustic levels so that the fans don't have to spin as much. They're not as loud, and I think that's really interesting. I think that's a good direction, at least a good approach, because we didn't really need more cooling necessarily. Our CPUs, for the most part, are handled by what's available, but it's good to see them innovating in this direction. And Noctua is a big player when it comes to air coolers, and they have been for a while. I mean, a lot of people know about Noctua and their tower cooler, the NHD15. It's basically the best air cooler you can buy, and it's a testament to their quality. They do a really good job, and they pay a lot of attention to detail, and they haven't needed to make a new product because those were so good. But they've been working on it, and you can see that they've got a few new coolers that look like a measurable improvement. They've got more fins and a new shape and bigger fans and redesigned fans, and all those things are actually a big deal when you're trying to push the limit. Really innovate and kind of get the next level from, especially like an air cooler. And I also noticed that they were doing something with a vapor chamber liquid cooler. So it doesn't look like it's going to have a pump. Instead, it's going to rely on the heat that's generating all of the vapor, I guess. So because like you have like a heat pipe, it kind of it moves the liquid inside the heat pipe. You might not be familiar with that, but it's kind of the same principle where the heat is actually going to cause the mechanical movement to move the liquid through the tubes and whatnot. So maybe that'll work out or not, but looks pretty cool. And in talking about cool, everybody's working on the coolest cases and the coolest coolers that I literally in terms of design, the aesthetic, right? Not necessarily, not actually cool and as opposed to the air coolers. No, we're talking more about something more aesthetic. They're actually working a lot on making these really intricately designed and beautiful hardware. Great cases, special coolers with screens. It's all over the place, and it seems to be the real place for cases to innovate right now. And I could care less about that in the long term. I mean, realistically, I want to see more affordable cases. People don't need to spend that much money on their case to get good performance. And there have been a number of more budget options coming around, which is good. Keeping the budget section probably the most important for me when it comes to building a computer, because you can still get some really good looks. You can get a really nice looking system without spending all that extra cash, and that'll allow you to get a higher performing system since you don't have to spend as much on your case. But the new cases do look really nice, and I mean the one thing that they're really doing to make a difference from like the performance perspective, and sort of it's more of a technological perspective. Basically, they're working on cases that can support the rear cable motherboard. So you've got your motherboard, like normally it sits flat like this, but we'll look at it from the side. So if we got our motherboard right here, normally you would be plugging your power cables in on this side, right? And let's say this is like where the processor would go in here. Looking at it, so this is like the front side, get the processor, right? So what they're doing is they're putting the cables on this side. So you don't see any cables on the front, and that's pretty cool. Again, it's more of an aesthetic thing, but there are some legitimate reasons to have this. I mean, there's no reason to have cables going to the front when they could plug in the back. I mean, it's very sensible, and it's something that I'm kind of interested in personally. If because it's not something that should really change the price of the device as much. Honestly, it's just a small design choice, but we do need cases and a lot more motherboards and things to support that. So you can see that this year people are taking that seriously. You've got a lot of new cases that are taking this in mind, and new motherboards that are keeping this in mind. But from a performance perspective, it's not. I don't think it's going to make a difference in performance. It doesn't really. I mean, it might help the airflow a little bit. It's mostly going to help you building the computer and it looking better. So that's cool. But one thing, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing at Computex right now is the cam style RAM. So normally you've got your RAM stick, right? Some kind of vertical stick that you slot into the board, as so. And, everyone's used to that for a long time. I mean, it's a good design, but you can see, especially in the last few generations, that the CPUs have a tough time dealing with all that bandwidth as the RAM is getting really fast and there's a ton of data moving through it, right? So you see a lot of motherboards and CPUs particularly struggling to run more than 2 channels of RAM because there's a non-zero amount of interference in there, right? So when you want to solve that problem, how do you approach it? Well, from a technological standpoint, really what you need to do, and this is what they are doing, is shortening the lengths of the connection. So the cable, I mean, it's essentially a wire that goes from the CPU to go to the RAM, and the shorter they make that, the less interference there is, the less signal loss there is. So that's why you see, Apple, for instance, is baking all their RAM right onto it, and there's a lot of laptops that need to do that in order to get the most performance. But on desktop, we don't really have a way to do that. The RAM has always slot in, right? So what they're making are these little chips that are like more like a rectangle, and they like slap in, and the traces on these are actually very, very, very equal. And that's important because actually the length of the wire isn't as important as making sure the signals all reach their destination at the same time. So, one way you can do that is by just shortening the cables, right? I mean, logically, it doesn't really make sense, but the shorter the wires are, the less interference are, so they don't have to be as precise. So that was the way that they were kind of going for it. But now with the CAM modules, all those wires are very easy to make equal, and they're also kind of interesting design. But that's where we're going, hopefully, with RAM, because they're claiming those chips can hit more like 10,000 mega transfers per second, which is a huge jump over the 6,000 we have right now. And I think that's kind of why DDR5 has been a little underwhelming, because I think DDR4 at 3,600 mega transfers per second with, CL30, it's kind of hitting the limit of just that the form factor, the DIMM stick, right? So your DDR5, you go up to 6,000 with CL whatever 36. It's not much more performant, at least in the operations per second, right? The latency, things like that, and then the total bandwidth. Obviously, 6,000 sounds like a lot, but the latency is higher. So yeah, essentially DDR5 isn't a massive jump over DDR4, but the cam sticks, the cam modules would actually give us, I feel like, that DDR5 jump that we've been looking for, right? We want that good DDR5. Like, I think that's really, I mean, it's a physical limitation, so something's got to change, and I think this is the answer. Uh, so yeah, there's not a ton of other crazy stuff that I've been seeing. I mean, it's not really blowing my mind this year. Mostly, I'm more interested in things like new monitor technology and, of course, the processor technology. So, as far as monitors go, I haven't seen a ton. Quantum.oled kind of came and blew us away for a while, and yeah, they don't really. It's not. It's gonna be a while before we have anything that's quite as insane as that. But I did see some micro LED stuff from Asus that was looking kind of good, but again, I think we're really looking for more affordable quantum dot OLED screens at this point, or I mean, some kind of new technology, maybe. Or you see Apple doing the dual layer OLED. I mean, that was a great idea. So maybe we'll see something like that soon. But as far as I've seen, nothing major on the horizon yet. There might be some new quantum dot OLED monitors this year, which would be really good, especially if they are more affordable. I think right now at like the 175 hertz with the Samsung G8 is kind of capping out the experience. I mean, going higher in the frame rate isn't really that big when you're on an OLED, because the pixel response time, again, those two things are pretty equal when it comes to the full experience. So yeah, I mean, there's the MSI monitor I saw coming with 240 hertz. I mean, I'm sure some people will be excited for that, but mostly looking for a lower price and maybe some new technology at one point. Um, but yeah, so as far as Computex goes in terms of new technologies, I think that's about it for the cool stuff. But let's talk about processors and kind of some other things that I've learned recently, and maybe not necessarily Computex related, but it kind of ties in with our new processors and something that we need to talk about. So the NVIDIA 5000 GPU series is going to be probably the most interesting story to most people, I think, simply because graphics cards are the most expensive part in the current computer, and they pretty much dictate what level of quality of graphics that you can demand from your system. There's not really any settings you can turn up for your CPU to increase the game's graphics. So one way or another, it all comes down to the GPU in the end, and it has for a long time. And the NVIDIA 5000 series is kind of doing what I thought they might do, which is not improve. At least in terms of raw performance. They're not putting a lot more cores in there. You can see they're not doing a lot more cores. What they're focusing on, again, is the AI features. Well, as far as AI goes, so AI upscaling, AI generated textures, whatever, anything AI generated. And by AI generated textures, I mean the ray tracing. They've got AI ray tracing, and then they also have ray tracing. And there's not, I don't know what exactly we're going to see from the new chips in terms of increasing that performance quality, because we already have frame gen, we already have DLSS, we have the NVIDIA voice and broadcast stuff. I mean, as far as in-game features go for AI processing, I mean, I can't I can't think of anything obvious. However, I think I was seeing that they are hopefully trying to use that to do more generative AI stuff in the game in terms of AI players, AI NPCs, essentially, or whatever you want to call them, and allowing you to have more natural interactions with you, which could be actually a really good feature. That could actually be a really good feature, but the problem is kind of the same as the 2000 series, is what I'm thinking, because remember when the 2000 series came out, it was basically just the 1000 series with some more features, ray tracing, essentially. It was the RTX launch. And RTX hasn't really become a huge thing still. There is a lot more ray tracing titles, but unless you've got a 4080 Super or higher, which not a lot of people do, probably not doing a lot of ray tracing yet. But we're kind of at the point now where ray tracing is going to be affordable and an option for a lot of people. Hopefully we can see games moving into more fully ray traced lighting. Should be great. If the new chips can deliver better ray tracing performance, which if they're not giving us raw performance, we better get some ray tracing performance, or they might just go full deep into the AI generative conversational model kind of thing so you can talk to the NPCs. But the problem with that is that there isn't going to be any games with it at first, and we probably won't see them for a while. So I'm betting that the 5000 series is going to be an easy skip. What they could do that would be great is make the 4090's performance available at like a 4080's price point, and that would be really sick. So hopefully they do that, because that's typically what we see generation over generation. And then you'd see like the 4080's performance coming down more like in the 4070's price range. And I think once you hit like that 4080, you're really in the next generation. So we can get a lot of people more closer to that target. It's going to be really good for everyone. But so I think that's about it for the new NVIDIA GPUs. We'll have to wait and see if they can deliver more performance. There's something they're not saying, but yeah, if they can get the AI stuff out, might be cool. But probably not yet. Then we've got AMD, and AMD's kind of not disappointing necessarily, but not too many giant leaps like we've seen in the past. It is a measurable increase, so they are staying competitive, right? If you think about what Intel's doing, I mean, the highest end chips can come like within shooting distance of each other against AMD. And, if Intel comes with another 10-15% jump, then they'll be beating AMD. But we've already seen from their keynote that they're claiming at least like 15-16% on the non 3D chips over the last gen. So Intel's got to at least make up that ground and then some more until at least the 3D chips come out, which I think, again, are going to be probably the best choice for gaming again, and are probably going to deliver some really great performance. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the 3D chips really offer over the 7000 series, because right now it's not looking like there's a huge reason to upgrade. At least definitely not the non-3D chips right now, especially because the 7800X 3D is already so cheap, and if so many people have it, or even the 7700X, I mean, you really got to get a crazy graphics card to saturate all that CPU bandwidth, or however you want to describe it, the headroom that you get from having a fast CPU. So AMD, looking good. Definitely gonna, I think, push past what Intel's got, but not a huge reason to upgrade. Not yet, at least. Their graphics cards, though, kind of a similar story, but there is one caveat. And this one I kind of want to talk about for a second, because I think it's really interesting. And I've been waiting for an opportunity to talk really good about AMD graphics, and I think this is the time, simply because we just said that NVIDIA is not delivering a lot more core performance, not the raw performance, not a lot more CUDA cores. AMD's kind of been leaning into that for a while now, right? AMD's got a lot of raw performance, and their next generation, it's not looking like it's going to be a big jump up, but it still will be something. And that can, alongside this other feature, which is FSR 3.1, make AMD a very interesting and probably a very good choice for a lot of people. Because the main difference between AMD cards and NVIDIA cards is that the frame gen and the DLSS is substantially better on NVIDIA, and almost everybody's going to be using those a lot of the time. So if you're going to be using that technology, and your AMD chip can now compete with that level of quality and have a little more raw performance, I think we're going to see some pretty good results from AMD. And especially if their new chips kind of step it up a notch, I think AMD might be the way to go this time. Even though their chips aren't looking like they're going to be that much crazier, it's this FSR 3.1 that's going to make the big difference. Because now we're going to see maybe even better FPS out of AMD and a very similar visual quality. They might not have the ray tracing yet, but kind of like we were saying before, ray tracing's still not quite all the way here yet. And it might take another generation or two before it comes really into the fold, and we don't know. There might actually be some more improvements for ray tracing from AMD in the next generation that they're not really saying, but I wouldn't hold my breath there. So yeah, AMD's doing pretty good. Not a huge reason to upgrade in the CPUs, but if you're waiting for an AMD GPU, this might be the generation. And I'd really like to see that personally. Next thing we're going to talk about, and we're going to kind of close this up here, is we've got our Intel GPUs and our Intel CPUs. The Intel GPUs are taking definitely a positive turn. They've definitely put a lot of work into their drivers and support. You can see from the A770 that it's doing pretty good in the titles that are supported, and more are getting added every day. And they're very adamant about talking about their technology and the ways they're trying to improve, and they're taking a very forward approach, which I think is good. It's not going to get them out of the gate really strong, as you've seen, but I think it'll pay off in the long run. And from the information that we got this year, it looks like they really have something special cooked up for the new generation, which is going to allow them to develop their drivers and they'll upgrade this compatibility between games and first-day launches by using this different structure in their programming pipeline. I can't remember the exact details on it. It was a pretty in-depth kind of technical talk, but essentially by, I think they were increasing the pipelines, it allowed them to have more flexibility and more compatibility. Again, yeah, kind of saying the same thing, but yeah, so with the new technology and the Intel graphics cards, they should hopefully be able to have some pretty good day one support and deliver some more performance, because they do have the potential. I mean, the chips look good, it's just the drivers, right? So a little bit of information about the Intel GPUs, looking pretty good. And then Intel specifically didn't reveal very much about their CPUs, but they are showing that they're going to be around another 15 to 16% increase. It says they're moving down to their 40A or 20A node. It's supposed to be some kind of 2 nanometer technology, which I would expect to have really good results, but 15% doesn't sound like a lot, so maybe it's just a new jump in technology for them, so we'll have to see how that matures. But the thing to know about that is they're changing the name. It's going to be the Core Ultra 200. Is essentially going to be the 15900K or something like that. I think that's how they're going about it. I'll put that up on the screen if I've got more accurate information about what those SKUs are. But everyone's just still a little bit confused about all that. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I picked up on recently. And I just kind of want to get that out there for you because it's my job to make sure you know exactly what's hot in technology so that you know what to buy and not waste your money on some kind of crap that's not going to do anything for you. So if you're waiting to upgrade your CPU or your GPU, you can definitely do that this generation. But if you've already got the latest and greatest stuff, you've got a 7th gen you've got a 7th gen AMD processor, and you have a 4080 or something, probably cruise for a little bit longer, and you'll be all right. But if you are looking for a new CPU or a GPU, good stuff. Definitely good stuff from AMD. Not so sure about NVIDIA. Thinking AMD, full AMD builds. Going to be a 24 thing. 2024, all AMD. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not sure I'm ready to trade out my 4090 yet, but for everybody else, it might be an AMD kind of deal. Alright, so I think that's it for this one. Again, this is Richie Riggs, and these videos are sponsored by me and my computer building business, so if you are interested in getting a PC from me, feel free to reach out. I'll make sure you get the best possible deal, and I'll even build your computer live on this channel. So don't forget to throw a like on this video and hit that subscribe button so you're entered to win a free PC whenever I hit 5,000 subscribers. I'm going to be giving away another free PC probably every month after that and until the end of time, hopefully. I just want to get everybody computers. And yeah, my weekend's not too packed up, so hopefully I'm going to have a few more videos coming for you too. And I'll see you in the next one. See you later.